Lisa had always believed that being a hairdresser was more than just cutting hair. For her, it was about making people feel confident, respected, and cared for. Every morning, she tied her apron around her waist, arranged her scissors and combs on the counter, and greeted customers with the warmest smile she could manage. She worked at a small salon on the corner of Main Street, a place filled with the sound of hair dryers, soft chatter, and the smell of hairspray. It wasn't a glamorous job, and the pay was hardly enough to cover her bills, but Lisa found joy in the little moments when a shy teenager saw themselves in the mirror and smiled, or when a tired mother left the chair looking renewed. Those were the rewards that mattered most to her. On a chilly Wednesday morning, while the town outside was covered in the gray colors of autumn, a man walked through the glass doors of the salon. He looked older, his back slightly bent, his coat frayed at the edges, and his shoes worn down from years of use. His hands trembled slightly as he took off his cap and held it against his chest. Lisa noticed how his hair was long, uneven, and tangled, almost as if he hadn't been able to afford a haircut for months. He walked toward the counter slowly, with the kind of dignity that came from carrying many years of hardship. "Excuse me," he said softly, his voice rough but polite. "How much would it cost just for a simple trim?" "Nothing fancy, just something neat." The receptionist glanced at him and replied with the standard price. Lisa noticed how the man's face fell for just a moment. He smiled anyway, as if trying to hide his disappointment. His hand slipped into his pocket, and Lisa could see him fumble with a few coins and a small folded bill. It was clear he didn't have much to give. Something inside Lisa stirred. She had always been taught to treat people with kindness, and looking at this man, she could sense there was more to his story than just a need for a haircut. She walked over with her usual gentle smile and said, "Why don't you sit down in my chair? Don't worry about the price today. Let me take care of this." The man hesitated. "I don't want to take advantage, miss. I served in the army years ago, but times have been tough. I just wanted to look presentable, maybe for a small job interview." Lisa placed a hand lightly on the chair and said, "You've already given enough. Please, let me do this for you." Reluctantly, he nodded and lowered himself into the chair. Lisa fastened the cape around his neck and began combing through his hair, carefully sectioning it before snipping away the uneven strands. As she worked, the man began to talk. At first, his words were slow, almost uncertain, but soon his voice grew steady. He shared pieces of his past, how he had once been a soldier, how he had traveled to places he never thought he would see, and how difficult it had been to return to a normal life afterward. Lisa listened intently, occasionally nodding, never interrupting. She knew he needed someone to hear him, someone to recognize the weight he carried. She trimmed carefully around his ears, evened out the sides, and shaped the back, all while keeping her movements calm and respectful. "You know," he said after a pause, "people don't often look at us veterans the same anymore. Sometimes, it feels like we're forgotten." Lisa's chest tightened. She leaned down slightly so he could see her face in the mirror and replied, "Not everyone forgets. You deserve respect, and today, you're going to walk out of here looking as sharp as you should." The man's eyes glistened with gratitude. He didn't say much after that, but Lisa could see the change in his posture as the hair fell away and his reflection grew clearer. By the time she finished, his hair was neat, his face framed in a way that made him look younger, stronger, and full of quiet dignity. She brushed away the last stray hairs and removed the cape. "There," she said softly. "All done." The man stared at himself in the mirror for a long moment. His lips trembled slightly, and then he whispered, "I can't thank you enough." Lisa shook her head. "No thanks needed. Just promise me one thing: go to that interview with confidence. You've earned the right to be proud." Slowly, he stood and placed his cap back on his head. His eyes watered, but he quickly blinked the tears away. He extended his hand, and Lisa took it. His grip was firm, the kind of handshake that carried both strength and gratitude. As he walked out of the salon, he turned back once, gave a small nod, and disappeared into the busy street. Lisa stood by her chair for a moment, watching him go, her heart full. To her, it had been such a small thing, a simple haircut, nothing more. But in that man's eyes, she had seen what it meant to be acknowledged, respected, and cared for. The rest of the day continued as usual, with customers coming in and out, chatting about their lives, laughing, and leaving with fresh styles. But Lisa couldn't shake the image of the veteran's expression, the way he had looked at himself in the mirror, as if for the first time in a long time he recognized his own worth. She felt that if she could give even one person that feeling, then she was in the right profession. She didn't tell her co-workers what she had done. It wasn't something she thought needed attention. To Lisa, kindness wasn't about being seen or praised, it was about doing what was right in the moment. She gathered her tools, swept the floor, and prepared for the next customer, completely unaware that this small act would soon change everything in her own life. That evening, as she locked up her station and walked home through the cool autumn air, she thought about the veteran. She hoped he had gone to his interview, hoped he would find the opportunity he was looking for. She didn't know that word of her kindness would spread, or that her manager would soon learn of it. She didn't know that the haircut, which to her had been nothing more than a gesture of respect, would bring consequences she never imagined. For now, she simply felt at peace, her heart lighter, believing she had done the right thing. The next morning, Lisa arrived at the salon early, as she always did. She enjoyed the quiet before the doors opened, the soft hum of the fluorescent lights, the faint smell of shampoo and hairspray, and the way the mirrors reflected the empty chairs waiting for the day's work. She set her tools on the counter, neatly lining up her scissors, combs, and clippers. It gave her a sense of order, a small ritual before the rush of clients filled the space. She had barely finished preparing when her manager, Mr. Thompson, entered through the back door. He was a tall man in his 50s with a stern face, a pressed shirt, and the kind of voice that always carried authority. He rarely smiled, and when he did, it never reached his eyes. He prided himself on running the salon like a business machine, every service carefully calculated, every dollar accounted for. Lisa greeted him with her usual politeness. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson." He didn't reply right away. Instead, he dropped his leather briefcase on the counter and turned to face her. "Lisa," he said, his tone clipped and sharp. "We need to talk." She felt a small knot form in her stomach. "Of course," she said softly, though she had no idea what the issue might be. Mr. Thompson crossed his arms. "I heard about yesterday. The veteran. The free haircut." Lisa blinked. She hadn't told anyone about that. Her voice was calm, but her heart began to beat faster. "Yes, he came in asking for a simple trim. I thought it was the right thing to do. He's a veteran, and he didn't have enough money." Her manager's expression hardened. "That's not your decision to make. We are not a charity. This is a business, Lisa. Every service has a price, and when you give something away, you are stealing from the company." The words hit her like a slap. Stealing. That wasn't what she had done at all. She tried to explain, her voice firm but respectful. "I wasn't trying to steal. I just wanted to help him. It was one haircut. It didn't cost the salon much." "I thought you thought wrong," he interrupted sharply. "Rules are rules. If every stylist decided to hand out free services whenever they felt like it, this place would shut down. Do you understand that?" Lisa felt her cheeks burn. She glanced at the empty chairs around her, wishing someone else could step in, someone who might understand. But it was just the two of them, the silence between them growing heavy. "I understand your point," she said carefully, "but I still believe kindness matters. It wasn't about money. It was about respect. Mr. Thompson shook his head. Respect doesn't pay the rent. Respect doesn't keep the lights on. You may think you did a noble thing, but in reality, you undermine the policies of this business. And I cannot allow that. Lisa's heart sank as she realized where this was heading. Please, Mr. Thompson, I've worked here for years. I care about my clients, and I've always followed the rules. Can't we let this one go? His voice grew colder. No, Lisa. This isn't up for debate. You're done here. Collect your things and leave. She stood frozen for a moment, unable to believe what she was hearing. Fired? For a single act of kindness? She had given so much of herself to the salon, her time, her effort, her dedication. She thought about the late night sweeping floors after closing, the extra shifts she had taken when others called out, the loyal clients who always asked for her by name. And now it all meant nothing because she had chosen compassion over money. Her lips trembled, but she forced herself to speak calmly. If that's truly your decision, then I'll go. But I hope someday you realize that kindness isn't weakness. It's strength. Mr. Thompson didn't reply. He simply turned his back, already flipping open his briefcase as though the matter were closed. Lisa felt her eyes sting, but she refused to let him see her cry. She quietly gathered her scissors, combs, and brushes, placing them carefully into her small black bag. Each item felt heavier than it should, as though it carried not just her tools but the weight of her years of work. As she walked through the salon toward the front door, she noticed a few early customers waiting. They looked up curiously, sensing the tension in the air. One woman whispered to another, eyes following Lisa as she pushed open the glass door. She kept her head high, though her chest ached with humiliation. Outside, the autumn wind hit her face, cool and sharp. She stood on the sidewalk for a moment, clutching her bag, unsure where to go. The streets bustled with people heading to work, unaware of her turmoil. She felt small, invisible, like a leaf blown out of place. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from a friend, asking how her day was going. Lisa didn't reply. What could she say? That she had lost her job for helping a veteran? That kindness had cost her everything? She began to walk, her steps slow, her thoughts heavy. She replayed the scene in her head, over and over, wishing she had defended herself better, wishing she had stood her ground. But deep inside, she knew there was nothing more she could have done. Mr. Thompson didn't value kindness. He only valued profit. By the time she reached her small apartment, the sun was higher in the sky, but Lisa felt as though the day had already ended. She dropped her bag by the door, sank onto the couch, and let the silence wash over her. She thought about the veteran again, his gratitude, the way he had looked in the mirror, the strength in his handshake. For him, the haircut had meant so much. For her, it had cost her job. She didn't know if she should feel proud or foolish. Maybe both. She wrapped her arms around herself and whispered aloud, as if trying to convince her own heart, I did the right thing. I know I did. The hours passed slowly. She tried distracting herself by making tea, by cleaning the kitchen, by folding laundry, but her mind kept drifting back to the salon. She pictured her co-workers going about their day, clients laughing and chatting as if nothing had happened. Would they even notice she was gone? Would they even care? That night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, sleep refused to come. She thought about her bills, her rent, the groceries she needed to buy. Without a job, how would she manage? Fear crept into her chest like a shadow. But alongside the fear, there was also a small flame of defiance. She had stood up for what she believed in. She had given respect where it was needed. And though she didn't know what the future would bring, she refused to regret that choice. Somewhere in the quiet of the night, she made herself a promise. She would not let this moment break her. She would find a way to keep going. What she didn't know was that her story was already spreading beyond the walls of the salon, carried by voices she hadn't expected, and that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. Lisa woke up the next morning with heavy eyes. She had barely slept. The events from the day before replayed in her mind again and again: her manager's harsh words, the humiliation of being told to leave, the cold autumn air as she walked out of the salon with her tools stuffed into her small bag. She sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the sunlight that struggled to push its way through the curtains. For the first time in years, she had nowhere to go, no job waiting for her, no schedule to follow. The silence in her small apartment felt strange, almost suffocating. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She ignored it at first, assuming it was just another reminder of unpaid bills or advertisements. But when it buzzed again, she picked it up. To her surprise, there were several messages from friends and even a few clients. One message read, "Is it true you got fired for helping that veteran? People are talking about it." Another said, "Don't worry, Lisa. You did the right thing. We're proud of you." Lisa blinked in confusion. She hadn't told anyone outside the salon about what happened. How did people already know? She scrolled further and saw a post shared on a local community page. Someone had written about the veteran who came in needing a haircut, about how Lisa had quietly helped him, and about how her manager fired her for it. The post ended with the words, "Kindness shouldn't be punished." Comments filled the page, dozens of them, then hundreds. Strangers expressed their outrage, calling the salon heartless and cold. Others praised Lisa, writing about how the world needed more people like her. Some even shared their own experiences of struggling and how small acts of kindness had lifted them. Lisa stared at the screen, her heart racing. She hadn't expected her small gesture to reach so many people. Later that day, she decided to step outside. She needed fresh air. As she walked down the street, she noticed something unusual. People looked at her differently. A woman passing by gave her a small smile and whispered, "Thank you." An older man nodded at her with respect. Even the barista at the coffee shop gave her a free cup of coffee, saying softly, "This one's on the house. You deserve it." Lisa felt a mixture of emotions: confusion, gratitude, and disbelief. She hadn't asked for any of this attention. All she had done was offer a haircut to a man who needed it. But now it seemed the whole town was talking about her. By the afternoon, a reporter called. The local newspaper wanted to do a short piece about her story. Lisa hesitated at first. She wasn't used to being the center of attention. She was just a hairdresser, not someone who made headlines. But the reporter insisted that people needed to hear about compassion, especially when it came at a cost. After a long pause, Lisa agreed to meet. When the article came out the next day, it spread even faster than the social media post. The headline read, "Hairdresser fired for helping veteran, community responds with support." Lisa's picture appeared next to the article, her face shy but determined. People she hadn't spoken to in years sent her messages. Clients she had once served wrote that they would follow her wherever she went, even if she opened her own place. Despite all the encouragement, Lisa couldn't shake the worry in her chest. Praise didn't pay the rent. Kind words didn't fill the fridge. She still needed work. But every time she thought about the veteran's grateful smile, she felt a spark of hope. Maybe the situation would lead to something better. She just didn't know what that better could be. One evening, while she was sitting at her kitchen table, scrolling through more messages online, she saw a video someone had posted. It was the veteran himself. He sat on a park bench, his hair neatly trimmed, his voice quiet but clear. "I want to thank the young woman who treated me with respect," he said. "She didn't ask for anything in return. She just gave me my dignity back. It breaks my heart to know she lost her job for it. But to me, she gave something priceless. People like her remind us that kindness is still alive in this world. Tears filled Lisa's eyes as she watched. She had never expected the man to defend her publicly. His words touched her more deeply than any of the online comments. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I would do it all over again." The following days grew stranger. The salon where she had once worked began to receive angry reviews online. Customers called for boycotts, saying they would never support a place that punished kindness. Some even gathered outside the shop with signs, protesting peacefully. Lisa hadn't asked anyone to do this, but the story had taken on a life of its own. At the same time, opportunities began to appear. A few small salons in nearby neighborhoods reached out to her, offering her a chair to work from. One even said they would be honored to have her because her values aligned with their own. Lisa considered the offers carefully, but deep down, she wasn't sure if going back to another salon was what she wanted. Something inside her whispered that maybe she was meant for more. In the middle of all this, she received a letter slipped under her door. It was handwritten, the paper slightly crumpled. She unfolded it and read, "Thank you for what you did. My father was a veteran, and I know what it means to see someone treat him with respect. The world needs more people like you. Please don't give up." There was no signature, just those words. Lisa held the letter close to her chest, feeling its weight. Each passing day, the voices of support grew louder. Friends visited her apartment to encourage her. Former clients knocked on her door to offer groceries or money, though she kindly refused most of it. She wasn't looking for charity. She only wanted a chance to work again, to do what she loved, helping people feel better about themselves. At night, when the city grew quiet, Lisa sat by her window, thinking about how quickly life had changed. 2 days ago, she had been a simple hairdresser with a steady, if modest, job. Now she was the center of a story that people across town and even beyond were sharing. She didn't know how to handle it all. The attention scared her, but it also gave her a strange sense of purpose. She wondered if the veteran had gotten the job he interviewed for. She wondered if he knew how much his gratitude meant to her. She wished she could thank him again. Lisa had no idea that the story was about to reach someone she never expected. She didn't know that the next knock on her door would come from the most powerful figure in town. She didn't know her life was about to take another turn, one even more surprising than being fired. For now, she sat quietly, her heart divided between fear of the unknown and hope for something brighter. She whispered to herself, maybe things happen for a reason. Maybe this is the start of something new. The morning light crept through the blinds of Lisa's small apartment, but she didn't feel like getting up. She lay still, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts tangled. It had been days since she was fired, yet the memory still felt raw. The sound of Mr. Thompson's voice telling her to pack her things haunted her. She had tried to stay strong, telling herself she did the right thing, but deep down, fear gnawed at her. How long could she go without a job? What if she couldn't pay her rent next month? Her phone buzzed with notifications, but she ignored them. She didn't want to see more posts or comments about her. The attention was overwhelming. What had started as one small act of kindness had become something far bigger than she ever intended. She never wanted to be the center of controversy. She only wanted to help someone who needed it. She finally pulled herself out of bed, made some tea, and sat by the window. The street outside was busy with people hurrying to work, carrying bags, holding coffee cups, their lives moving forward while hers felt like it was standing still. She sighed and told herself she would start looking seriously for another job. Just as she was sipping her tea, there was a knock at the door. Lisa froze. She wasn't expecting anyone. Her first thought was maybe it was a neighbor or a friend dropping by, but the knock came again, louder this time, more deliberate. She set her cup down and walked slowly to the door, her heart racing. When she opened it, The sight before her nearly made her drop her breath. Standing there was the mayor of the town, a tall man in a dark suit, flanked by two staff members. Behind them, Lisa could see a small group of reporters holding cameras and notebooks. She blinked in shock, unable to find her words. "Miss Lisa," the mayor said warmly, extending his hand. "I hope this isn't a bad time. May I come in for a moment?" Lisa hesitated, her mind spinning. Why would the mayor be here, at her door? She glanced at the cameras behind him, then quickly stepped aside. "Of course, come in." The mayor entered with a calm smile, his staff staying near the door while the reporters waited outside. Lisa's small apartment suddenly felt too small for the moment. She gestured nervously toward the couch. "Please, sit." The mayor sat down, folding his hands neatly on his lap. "I wanted to speak with you personally," he began. "I've been following your story. It has touched not just me, but the entire community. What you did for that veteran, giving your time and kindness without asking for anything in return, was an act of true humanity." Lisa's hands shook slightly as she clasped them together. She wasn't used to being praised like this, especially by someone so important. "I didn't think it was a big deal," she said softly. "He needed help. I just did what felt right." The mayor leaned forward, his expression serious but kind. "That's exactly why it matters. Too often, people forget that the smallest gestures can carry the greatest weight. You gave that man dignity, and in doing so, you reminded all of us of the values we should hold dear." Lisa swallowed hard, her throat tight. She had never thought her choice would ripple this far. She never thought anyone beyond the walls of the salon would care. "But I lost my job because of it," she admitted. "I'm not sure what I'm going to do now." The mayor's eyes softened. "I understand your struggle, and I want you to know that the community stands with you. You have become a symbol of compassion in this town. That's why I'm here today, to thank you, and to make sure you know you're not alone." Before Lisa could respond, one of the staff members stepped forward and handed her an envelope. She looked down at it, confused, then carefully opened it. Inside was an official letter, stamped with the city's seal. Her eyes widened as she read. It was an invitation to a special community event at City Hall, where she and the veteran would be honored publicly for their story. Lisa looked up, her voice trembling. I don't know what to say." The mayor smiled. "Say yes. Let the people see you for who you are. This isn't just about what happened at the salon. It's about reminding everyone in this town that kindness matters more than profit, more than policies. We need examples like you." Tears welled in Lisa's eyes, but she blinked them away quickly. She didn't want to cry in front of the cameras outside. "Thank you," she whispered. "I never expected any of this." The mayor stood, offering his hand once more. "Sometimes, the things we least expect are the ones that change our lives the most. You didn't just help a veteran, you inspired a whole community." When he left, the reporters swarmed him with questions, snapping photos of Lisa standing shyly at her doorway. She felt exposed, but also strangely proud. She wasn't used to attention, but maybe this was bigger than her. Maybe it wasn't just her story anymore, it was everyone's. After they left, Lisa closed the door and leaned against it, her heart pounding. She clutched the letter in her hand, reading it again and again. She couldn't believe it. The mayor himself had thanked her. She would be honored at City Hall. That evening, her phone didn't stop buzzing. Friends called, clients messaged, and even people she didn't know reached out. Many offered help, some offered jobs, and others simply wanted to say how inspired they were. Lisa was overwhelmed, but she also felt a sense of lightness she hadn't felt in days. For the first time since losing her job, she felt hopeful again. Still, as she sat quietly at her kitchen table, she wondered what came next. Would she really stand in front of the entire town and be honored? Could she handle that kind of attention? She wasn't used to speeches or ceremonies. She was just a hairdresser who wanted to help someone. But deep down, another voice whispered to her. Maybe this was a turning point. Maybe this was her chance to start over, not as someone who worked under strict rules, but as someone who could make her own path. The thought scared her, but it also filled her with courage she didn't know she had. The night passed slowly. She rehearsed what she might say if asked to speak, though every time she tried, her voice faltered. Still, she reminded herself that it wasn't about perfect words. It was about honesty. As she finally drifted off to sleep, clutching the letter by her bedside, she had no idea just how much more her life was about to change. She didn't know that donations were already being gathered, that people were planning to help her open her own shop, or that the veteran himself was preparing a speech that would bring the crowd to tears. For now, all she knew was that she had been seen, valued, and respected, and that tomorrow might hold something brighter. The day of the event at City Hall arrived faster than Lisa expected. She stood in front of her small mirror, adjusting her hair nervously. She had borrowed a simple dress from a friend, nothing flashy, just neat and respectful. Her hands trembled as she brushed a final strand into place. It felt strange to prepare not for a day of cutting hair, but for a day when the whole town would be looking at her. As she stepped outside, the crisp air filled her lungs. A car sent by the mayor's office was waiting to take her to the event. She hesitated before getting in, her heart pounding. This was real. She wasn't just a hairdresser today. She was someone being recognized for something that had started with a single act of kindness. When she arrived at City Hall, the sight stunned her. The steps were filled with people, neighbors, families, even strangers who had heard her story. Some held small signs with words like "Kindness Matters" and "We Support Lisa." Cameras flashed as she walked up the stairs, guided by one of the mayor's staff members. She kept her head low, shy from the attention, but she couldn't ignore the warmth in the eyes of the people cheering her on. Inside, the hall was decorated with flags and flowers. Rows of chairs were filled with townsfolk, and at the front, a stage had been set up. The mayor greeted her with a kind smile and guided her to a seat near the front. To her surprise, the veteran she had helped was already there, dressed neatly in a clean shirt and jacket. His posture was straighter, his face brighter than she remembered. When their eyes met, he gave her a nod full of gratitude. Lisa felt her throat tighten. The event began with the mayor addressing the crowd. His voice carried with confidence as he spoke about the values of compassion and community. "We live in a world where rules and profit often overshadow humanity," he said. "But every once in a while, someone reminds us what truly matters. Today, we honor a young woman who showed us that kindness has the power to inspire us all." He motioned toward Lisa. The crowd clapped, some people even stood, and Lisa felt her cheeks flush. She wasn't used to applause. She lowered her gaze, wishing she could hide, but at the same time, she felt a sense of pride she hadn't known before. Next, the veteran stood up to speak. His voice was steady, though she could see his hands shake slightly as he held the microphone. "I walked into that salon feeling invisible," he said. "I didn't have much in my pocket, but I had hoped that someone might treat me with respect. Lisa didn't just give me a haircut. She gave me back my dignity. She reminded me that I still mattered. For that, I will always be grateful." His words brought tears to Lisa's eyes. She wasn't the only one, many in the crowd wiped their faces quietly. The veteran then turned toward her, his voice softening. "Lisa, you may think what you did was small, but to me, it was life-changing. And to everyone here, it's proof that kindness is never wasted." The applause that followed was thunderous. Lisa's chest swelled with emotion, and when it was her turn to speak, she stood slowly, gripping the microphone tightly. Her voice trembled at first, but she forced herself to continue. "I don't feel like I did anything special," she said honestly. "I just saw someone who needed help, and I couldn't walk away. Kindness should never be punished. If my story means anything, I hope it reminds us all that we can make a difference in someone's life, even with the smallest act." The crowd erupted once more, and Lisa felt her heart lighten. She realized she wasn't just speaking for herself anymore. She was speaking for everyone who believed in compassion. After the speeches, the mayor presented her with a certificate of recognition, but that wasn't all. He announced that a local fund had been set up in her honor, supported by donations from people across the community. The money was enough to help Lisa open her own small barber shop, a place where she could work freely and continue to serve people the way she believed was right. Lisa's jaw dropped. She had dreamed of one day having her own shop, but she never thought it was possible. And now, here it was being offered to her because of a single choice she made. She covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed by gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, though the words felt far too small for what she felt inside. The following weeks were a whirlwind. With the community's support, Lisa found a small storefront near the town square. Volunteers helped her paint the walls, set up chairs, and hang mirrors. Neighbors brought flowers and decorations. Clients she had once served showed up with gifts, excited to see her dream come to life. On the day she opened the doors, a line of people stretched down the block, waiting to sit in her chair. Above the entrance, a simple sign hung proudly, "Lisa's Barber Shop, where kindness comes first." Inside, another small sign stood by the counter. It read, "Veterans and Heroes, free haircuts anytime." Lisa kept her promise. Every time a veteran walked in, she greeted them warmly, offering not just a haircut but a listening ear. The shop wasn't just a place for haircuts anymore, it became a place for connection, for sharing stories, for community. Word spread beyond the town. Regional newspapers picked up her story. People traveled from nearby cities to see the shop and to meet the hairdresser whose kindness had sparked a movement. Some came just for a haircut, others came to shake her hand, but all left with the sense that kindness still had a place in the world. Lisa's life was busier than ever, but it was also fuller. She no longer worked under harsh rules or cold policies. She worked with freedom, guided by her own values. Every time she saw the reflection of a smiling face in her mirror, she remembered why she had chosen this path. One evening, after closing the shop, Lisa sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the street outside. The neon sign of her shop glowed softly in the dark. She thought back to the day she gave the veteran his haircut, the day she was fired, the day she almost lost hope. She realized now that those painful moments had led her here to a new beginning she never imagined. Her heart swelled with gratitude. Not just for the veteran, not just for the mayor, but for the entire community that stood by her. She whispered to herself, it was worth it. Every bit of it. For Lisa, the story wasn't about being a hero. It was about remembering that kindness, no matter how small, had the power to change lives. And though she never sought recognition, she had found something far more valuable, a community united by compassion, and a future where she could keep giving, one haircut at a time.